Fascism is a serious threat. It's a political ideology that mixes extreme conservatism with authoritarianism and fascist ideas. This ideology wants to go back to traditional social hierarchies. It believes in strict law and order. It wants to silence anyone who disagrees. This movement is dangerous because it goes against the very principles of democracy. Imagine a world where your every move is watched. Your thoughts are policed. You have no voice, no choice. This is the world that fascism seeks to create. This ideology is not just about extreme conservatism, it's about a total control over every aspect of society. At its core, this ideology is about power. It's about consolidating power in the hands of a select few.
Section 3. Hitler's Germany, the horrors of fascism unleashed. While Mussolini established the blueprint for fascism, it was Adolf Hitler who unleashed its full horrors upon the world. Hitler's Germany took the core tenets of fascism, nationalism, authoritarianism, and the suppression of dissent, to their most extreme and terrifying conclusions. Like Mussolini, Hitler capitalized on a climate of fear and uncertainty. Germany was reeling from the humiliation of defeat in World War I and the economic devastation of the Great Depression. The Weimar Republic, Germany's fragile democracy, was incapable of solving their country's problems.
The 21st century, despite its technological advancements and interconnectedness, has witnessed a disturbing resurgence of fascism. This ideology, once thought to be relegated to the history books after the horrors of World War II, is finding new life in various parts of the world. This resurgence is not a mere coincidence. It is fueled by a complex interplay of factors, including economic anxieties, social divisions, and political polarization. The 2008 financial crisis, with its far-reaching economic consequences, created a breeding ground for extremist ideologies. The resulting economic hardship, coupled with job losses and austerity measures, fueled resentment and disillusionment with the established political order.
The resurgence of fascism is not confined to a single region or continent. It is a global phenomenon, manifesting itself in different forms across the world. From the heart of Europe to the Americas and Asia, this ideology is gaining ground, often exploiting local grievances and vulnerabilities. In Europe, the rise of right-wing populist parties is a testament to the growing appeal of fascism. These parties, often fueled by anti-immigrant sentiment, economic anxieties, and a rejection of multiculturalism, have made significant electoral gains in recent years. They exploit people's fears about cultural change and national identity, offering simplistic solutions to complex problems. The resurgence of fascism is not a spontaneous phenomenon. It is enabled and fueled by a complex interplay of factors, ranging from economic anxieties to the manipulative power of social media. These factors create a fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root and spread. Economic inequality, with its widening gap between the rich and the poor, is a major driver of this trend. The perception that the system is rigged in favor of the elites, coupled with the fear of economic insecurity, creates a sense of resentment and anger that demagogues are adept at exploiting. They offer simplistic solutions, often targeting minorities or immigrants as scapegoats, to appeal to those who feel left behind. In the hands of fascist regimes, the media transforms from a platform for informing the public to a weapon for controlling it. This control can be overt, with outright censorship and state-run media outlets, or more subtle, through a combination of pressure, intimidation, and co-optation. One of the first targets is often independent media outlets. These outlets, with their commitment to investigative journalism and holding power to account, pose a direct threat to authoritarian regimes. They are often subjected to smear campaigns accused of spreading fake news or acting as agents of foreign powers. In some cases, these accusations are a prelude to more direct action. Propaganda is the lifeblood of fascist regimes. It is through propaganda that these regimes shape public opinion, demonize their opponents, and justify their actions. Propaganda is not about informing, it is about manipulating. One of the key characteristics of fascist propaganda is its reliance on emotional appeals rather than rational arguments. Fear, anger, and resentment are powerful motivators, and fascist regimes are adept at exploiting these emotions to their advantage. Scapegoating is another common tactic. Section 3. The digital battlefield, social media and the spread of disinformation. The digital age, with its instant communication and global reach, has provided fascist movements with powerful new tools for spreading their ideologies and manipulating public opinion. Social media platforms in particular have become fertile ground for the dissemination of disinformation and the amplification of extremist views. One of the key challenges posed by social media is the sheer volume of information. The average user is bombarded with a constant stream of news, opinions, and images, making it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. This creates an environment where disinformation can thrive.
Section 1. Defiance in the face of oppression. History teaches us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit yearns for freedom. Fascism, with its iron fist and suffocating control, inevitably breeds resistance. This resistance takes many forms, from quiet acts of defiance to organized movements challenging the very foundation of the oppressive regime. Individuals, though living under the constant threat of surveillance and punishment, find ways to resist. They whisper truths in hushed tones, share banned books and articles, and use subtle acts of sabotage to disrupt the regime's machinery. Section 2. The power of many grassroots movements and collective action. While individual acts of defiance are essential, it is through collective action that resistance movements gain strength. Grassroots movements harness the collective power of communities to demand change. These movements often start small, with neighbors meeting in secret, workers organizing in factories, and students forming underground study groups. They create networks of solidarity and support. They organize protests and demonstrations, drawing attention to abuses and demanding reform. They use strikes and boycotts to disrupt the economy. The success of grassroots movements hinges on mobilizing a broad coalition of citizens, uniting people around shared values and a common desire for freedom.
Section 3. Digital resistance, harnessing technology for freedom. In the 21st century, the battle against fascism is increasingly fought in the digital realm. The internet and social media have become powerful weapons in the hands of resistance movements. Social media platforms provide a space for activists to connect, organize, and disseminate information. Hashtags become rallying cries, viral videos expose human rights abuses, and online petitions mobilize international pressure. Digital tools also provide new avenues for circumventing censorship and surveillance. VPNs allow users to bypass internet restrictions, while encrypted messaging apps provide secure channels for communication. Freedom of speech under siege. One of the first casualties in the march toward fascism is freedom of speech. This cherished right, fundamental to any democracy, is seen as a threat by those who seek absolute control. Dissent is not tolerated. Criticism is met with swift and brutal repression. The methods used to silence dissent are varied and insidious. Censorship boards control the flow of information. Independent media outlets are shuttered or brought under state control. Journalists who speak truth to power are harassed, intimidated, or imprisoned. Fear becomes a powerful weapon. Citizens self-censor. Critical thinking is stifled. Public discourse is reduced to regime propaganda. This creates an illusion of unity built on fear, not consent. Without a free media, corruption flourishes. Without criticism, abuses of power go unchecked. Society stagnates, unable to adapt or correct its course. Section 2. Living in a panopticon, the erosion of privacy. Fascism is obsessed with control. This control extends beyond the public sphere and into the most private aspects of citizens' lives. Privacy, once considered a fundamental right, is systematically eroded, replaced by a pervasive atmosphere of surveillance and suspicion. The justification for this intrusion is often national security or the need to combat terrorism. However, these justifications quickly morph into a pretext for monitoring the activities of all citizens, regardless of whether they pose a threat to the regime. Surveillance technologies, from facial recognition software to internet monitoring programs, are deployed on a mass scale. Data is collected, analyzed, and used to create detailed profiles of individuals, tracking their movements, their associations, even their thoughts and beliefs. This constant surveillance has a chilling effect on society. Individuals, knowing that they are being watched, become afraid to express dissenting views, even in private. Trust erodes, replaced by suspicion and paranoia. The very fabric of a free society, woven from the threads of individual liberty and autonomy, begins to unravel. Justice undone, the dismantling of judicial independence. A cornerstone of any democracy is the separation of powers. Authoritarianism sees an independent judiciary as an obstacle to its control. The process is often gradual and insidious. Judges are removed or replaced with loyalists. Laws are rewritten to control the courts. Lawyers are pressured to toe the party line. As the judiciary loses independence, the rule of law crumbles.
The fragile fabric of freedom. Freedom is fragile. The rights and liberties we take for granted, freedom of speech, the right to privacy, are not immutable. They are fragile constructs, vulnerable to neglect and dismantling. History shows the rise of authoritarian regimes as a stark reminder. From Mussolini's Italy to Hitler's Germany, the pattern is familiar. Suppression of dissent, demonization of minorities, erosion of institutions, these are warning signs. Recognizing the warning signs. To combat fascism, we must first recognize its insidious creep into our societies. It advances slowly, eroding democratic norms and institutions like water wearing down stone. One visible sign is the rise of nationalist and xenophobic rhetoric. Scapegoating minorities is a classic tactic used by authoritarian regimes. Another red flag is the erosion of trust in democratic institutions. Authoritarian leaders portray themselves as strongmen, the only ones capable of fixing a broken system. They attack the media, accusing them of spreading fake news. The suppression of dissent is another hallmark of authoritarian regimes. Journalists are harassed or imprisoned. The free flow of information is stifled through censorship and propaganda. We must be vigilant, refusing to accept the normalization of authoritarian tactics. Safeguarding our future, a call to action. The fight against fascism is not a spectator sport. Silence is not an option. Complacency is not an option. The time for action is now. Education is our first line of defense. Democracy requires active participation. Support organizations that defend civil liberties and promote human rights. Create a world where diversity is celebrated and freedom burns brightly.